Fox Sports.
We are Fox Sports. We are Ohio.
It is a picture-perfect weather night in Chicago, and we welcome you to the north side at Wrigley Field, already the home of the National League Central Division champion Chicago Cubs, the first of three, with the Reds taking on the Cubbies here tonight. Hi again, everybody, alongside Chris Welsh and Jim Day. I'm Tom Brenneman. Great to have you with us on this Monday night from Chicago, and what a year it's been for the hometown Cubs. In 146 games, they clinched the NL Central. They're thinking about basically wrapping up the number one seed for the postseason in the National League. And what a year it's been for so many of their players. But Chris Bryant is finally becoming the guy everybody thought he would.
Well, you're right about that. He was a guy that, remember, at the beginning of last year, he didn't make the ball club, and they finally brought him back up. Well, this year, he would not be denied. I mean, he has killed the Reds, too. 9 of his 37 home runs have come at the expense of the Reds. It seems like every time the Reds come to town or the Cubs come to town in Cincinnati, Bryant is in the middle of all the scoring. 9 home runs, 21 runs driven in. You know, Bryant's interesting because he had a tremendous month of August after getting off to a good start this year, but he's really slumped a little bit in September, so maybe, just maybe, the Reds will figure out a way to get him out here in this series.
Cubs pitching has been nothing short of incredible, and what a year it's been, especially at home for this guy.
You know, if you take away just a couple of bad starts, and they were on the road, because at home this guy, since the All-Star break, has been one of the best pitchers in baseball. And the ironic thing about it with Jason Hamilton is that he may not even make the playoff roster. As good as he is here at Wrigley Field, he may be the one guy left out when they finally make the roster and they fill it with 11 pitchers.
Problems. Meanwhile, for the Reds, how about Tim Adelman getting another chance tonight?
Well, you know, Tim Adelman is playing with house money right now. He's already been at the very low point of his professional career, played in the independent leagues. He had an injury that cost him 2.5 months of the season, an oblique injury. When he's been on the road this year, he has not pitched bad. He's never pitched against the Cubs before, so he's got the advantage of them having never seen him, which is something very good to a team that can score as many runs as the Cubs.
All right, when we come back, we're going to send it down to our main man, Jim Day. He's going to give you an update on what's happening with the Reds yesterday, starting with his main man, Joey. A monster day yesterday, and the Reds win over the Pirates. That's up next on Fox Sports Ohio.
It's Skyline time. Night game here at Wrigley. I'm Jim Day. The Reds got out of town yesterday, avoiding the sweep at the hands of the Pirates, and boy, did they have some hot hitters in that game. The Reds hope that carries over tonight here into Chicago. It's our Elk and Elk storylines. Joey Votto continues his torrid pace in the second half. He was 4 for 4 yesterday and just blistered the Pirates in a 7-4 victory. Votto, fifth four-hit game since the All-Star break. That is the most in Major League Baseball. Tucker Barnhart had himself a day. Tied a career high with 4 RBIs. He set that earlier this season, August 16th versus Miami, and Scott Schebler continues to impress. A 3 for 4 day, a double, RBI, 3 runs, and his 11th multi-hit game since August 20th. And gentlemen, even Dan Straley got in on the act. He got the monkey off his back, his first big league hit, and it's been a long time coming. Coming up later in the game coverage, you'll hear Straley's reaction and what his teammates had to say as well. So we send it upstairs with the gentlemen that will call it, Tom Brittiman and Chris Welsh.
All right, here we go with the Red starting lineup. It'll be Peraza leading off, followed by Erie Byron, a rare start for him. Votto in the 3-hole, Duvall, Phillips, Schebler, Suarez, Barnhart, and Adelman. And on the mound is Hamill, who delivers the game's first pitch up and in, and we are underway at Wrigley Field in Chicago. Game 1 of 3. Naturally, sellout crowd on hand Monday night, September, school going on, but the Cubbies so popular even in years when they are not having the kind of season they're having this year. Out in short left field, that'll be handled for the game's first out. Take a look at Chicago on defense. The man who just made that play a moment ago. Cubs just recently brought him back, Chris Coughlin. He had played well for them the last couple of seasons. Regulars Fowler and Hayward. Regular group in the infield, Bryant, Russell, Zobrist, Rizzo, and Contreras. Young man getting a chance, Chris, play a little more and more as the season goes on.
Well, Jason Hamill, really his second time around to the Cubs. He's just turned 33 years old a few weeks ago here in the month of September. And as good as this starting rotation is for the Cubs, there's a question mark as to whether Jason Hamill will be able, on that postseason roster, able to be active for this Cubs season. He's having a kind of year that is exactly what Jason Hamill puts up in an ordinary year. He's got 14 wins, which is a little bit above average for him, but he's a guy that keeps you in the ball game. He doesn't overpower you. He's got a great slider, and that's going to be his go-to pitch pretty much on every right-hander up there. He'll throw a few more curveballs against lefties. But overall, Hamill is just a guy that keeps you in the game, except when he pitches here at Wrigley Field. Then he really shuts you down, especially since the All-Star break.
And they appealed down the third, and no, says Andy Fletcher. Dana DeMuth, the crew chief at second base. Ed Hickox, the umpire at first. Mike Estabrook calling the balls and strikes. A rare start for Erie Byron. 8 of his 13 appearances since being brought up have come as a pinch hitter. And this guy can swing the bat. And Chris, I got to believe with the limited opportunities he's been given this year, but he has proven that he can hit. Had a monster year in Louisville. Won the batting title in the International League. That he might be in the mix for a backup spot looking ahead to next year. He's the second out of the inning.
I think you're right on it, Tom. A lot of people look at Erie Byron and they'll say, well, he's 32 years old. I mean, why would you bring a guy around that long, who's that long in the tooth? Well, the main reason is because you want a veteran off the bench, and he has shown a real good idea of the strike zone.
So now Joey Votto. Boy, the beat just continues to go on and on and on. Just when you think maybe the guy might show signs of slowing down. The recent homestand, he goes 11 for 29. 2 home runs, a double, 4 knocked in. 4-time All-Star, former league most valuable player is Votto, and it's inside 2-0. Joey, a 4-hit game yesterday, hit a long home, or hit a home run that just barely cleared the wall. There's a strike. IGS bringing the energy. Look where he ranks among all National Leaguers Going back to the early part, 213, 249, as low as 84th in the league in batting. Moved in the top 25, top 10, now top 5 as he begins a day at 319. 3-1.
Well, you can tell the way that Joey Votto takes a pitch. I mean, his recognition of that pitch coming out of the pitcher's hand is second to none in Major League Baseball right now. I mean, he is seeing it all the way.
And he draws a 2-out walk. So that'll bring up Adam Duvall. 240 batter, 31 home runs, a team high, 92 runs batted in, a team high. Duvall 6 of 25 on the homestand, had 3 doubles and a home run. Ball 1. Hamill has not thrown a first pitch strike to any of the first 4 batters. That's popped up and out of play. Now, the first thing you think of when you come to Wrigley Field in Chicago, or at least the first thing most players look for when they come to Wrigley Field, which way is the wind blowing? It's a warm night tonight. Wind is blowing slightly out towards straightaway center field.
You know, a lot of people think it blows that way all the time here, and it does not. In fact, the majority of the time the wind blows in. Early in the year, it can be very cold here, wind off the lake, killing the ball that gets up into the air. It'll be helpful tonight, but not by much.
It was blowing a little firmer during batting practice, and I'm going to tell you what. Chris Bryant, watching his batting practice today, made this place look like a wiffle ball field.
Well, like he needs the help?
Yeah, no kidding. Man, oh man, does the ball just jump off his bat. 1-2 the count on Duvall. Gone swinging to end the inning. Votto will walk, but that's all. Tim Adelman will make his Wrigley Field debut when we return. Leading the Cubs to back-to-back playoffs in his first 2 seasons as manager. Cubs have only done that 4 times in the history of the franchise. Think about that. Back-to-back trips to the playoffs. Take a look at his lineup tonight. He'll go with Fowler, Chris Bryant in the 2-hole, And Rizzo at first, bats third. Zobrist, Russell, who's knocked in 92 runs, a shortstop. Very disappointing year for the big money free agent Hayward. And a latter third of Contreras, Coghlan, and Hamels. I'm sure a few extra butterflies when you pitch Chris for the first time at Wrigley Field for Tim Adelman.
Well, there are a number of Reds players that have never stepped foot in this ballpark before, and I think Tim Adelman is one of them. So the first thing you come is when you take that long tunnel from the clubhouse to the dugout. The dugout is so small by today's standards, and you look up, and there it is, Wrigley Field. And really getting through this first inning is going to be a chore emotionally for Tim Adelman. Once he can do that, I think he should be able to settle down.
And there's a strike to Dexter Fowler. Last Tuesday night, hit his 7th leadoff home run of the season. That's the most by any Cub since Alfonso Soriano hit a club record 12 of them in 2007. And he taps out to Votto, 1 away. So the Reds on defense, presented by Ford. Talked about Erie Byron, a rare start in center field, flanked by Duvall and Schebler. Regular group along the infield, at least regular of late, with Zach Cozart still nursing a tender knee. Big day yesterday offensively for Tucker Barnhart. So Erie Byron patrolling center field. We have not seen Billy Hamilton since the very beginning of the month, and you wonder if we will see him again. More than likely not. You wonder at this point, are we going to see Cozart again?
Well, Cozart's not on this trip. So there's your answer right there. And it's a shame, too, because he was having such a wonderful year with the way that he got his season going. I mean, you can't find a guy that works harder at his game or really more deserving of success. It's just a tough break to have a little setback with his leg. And hopefully it's not serious and that he can play a little bit before the end of the year. And even if he isn't, at least he can convince the Reds that he's healthy enough to play next year.
Bryant going on 3 straight pitches. You brought up earlier, slumping a bit here in the month of September. And that didn't last long at all.
Well, he's got 37 home runs on the year, and he's got 1 in the month of September. And he's hitting very low as far as batting average goes. And Adelman says, you know what, I'm just going to challenge him. A lot of that has to do with the scouting report that the Reds have put together. And obviously, they want to come right after him with the hard stuff.
So a little bounce in his place. The walk-up music for Anthony Rizzo. Here's another guy having just a huge year, especially of late. His batting average wasn't all that great early in the year. He was getting on base regularly. He'll take his walks. But 31 home runs and 101 runs batted in. Only the second left-handed batter in Cubs history. Think about that for a minute. In the history of the franchise, to have multiple 30-homer, 100 RBI seasons. We're talking about joining the Hall of Famer Billy Williams. He did it 3 times in his great career. They hung a flag up with his number on. Yet Rizzo hits that one about 50 feet. And a good start for Adelman in his Wrigley Field debut. in the top half of the second inning. This has been a season head-to-head dominated by Chicago. Winners of 10 out of 13. Look at the runs per game and the home runs. That is a staggering number, and that is not a misprint. In 13 games, the Cubs have hit a stunning 32 home runs. That is tied for the 6th most by the Cubs against any opponent in a single season, going all the way back to 1913.
Really, you know, if you start breaking down the Cubs season, you find out that they have been very good at beating the teams that they should beat. And that starts right here in this division against the Pirates and the Reds and the Milwaukee Brewers. And it's one of those things that really has turned around over the last few years, because the Reds used to really own the Cubs. But here's the way they got the 94 wins. 51% of their wins have come against American League teams, are 15-5 in interleague play. And the rest of those wins.
That ball is into left center field, and Brandon Phillips has made it a 1-0 game. Home run number 11 for Brandon. Not only is there a light wind, it is very warm here tonight. I got a feeling that won't be the last home run that's hit in this game.
It's really more like a July night than it is a September night. That ball sounded so good coming off the bat.
He knew it immediately.
I think so did Jason Hamill.
I want you to get back, though, to that graphic we had a moment ago, because it's very interesting when you really break down the Cubs with their 94 wins and who they've done a lot of it against.
Yeah, I thought it was worth revisiting that 51% of their wins have come against the 3 teams in the league that are below them, other than the Cardinals, where they're playing about 500 against, and they've done really well in the interleague plays. Now, they play the same interleague teams that the Reds did this year, the American League West. And now, so when you start really looking at it, you know, team by team, you realize, well, they played really well against the Atlanta Braves, they played well against the Angels and so on. But when you start looking at teams in which those teams are competing for postseason play as well, the Cubs are right there at 50-50. You know, they may have won one more than they have lost, but it's not like they're blowing out, you know, the Boston Red Sox, or they're blowing out, you know, the Los Angeles Dodgers, or the St. Louis Cardinals, or the Mets. So it's you know, 94 wins is 94 wins. I think what they win last year, they won 97, and they came in 3rd place.
That's right.
In this division. So
Yeah,
they picked a good year to have some more wins.
Yeah, they had to beat the Pirates, you may remember, in that 1-game playoff. That was a complete game victory by Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, they finished really strong last year. At this point in the season last year, they had 87 wins.
So Schebler, the ground ball after the Brandon Phillips home run, which, by the way, here's a note for you. That home run by Brandon Phillips was his first at Wrigley Field since 2013. That may come as a shock to many. A throw in the dirt by Russell, but in time to get Suarez. 2 away in the inning. On the ground to Rizzo, pulled by Barnhart down there, and that'll take care of the Reds. But they jump on Hamill to begin the scoring in the game on a solo home run by Brandon Phillips. 1-0 Cincinnati. Friday, October the 1st. That'll be the final weekend, final 3 games of the season. You can come as low as $13. Reds take on these Cubs. And thanks to Butterbee's American Grill, the first 25,000 fans receive a Team Cincinnati t-shirt. 381-REDS or log on to Reds.com. Cubbies bat in the 2nd inning. A Brandon Phillips home run in the top of this inning has given the Reds a 1-0 lead. Adelman, an 8-pitch inning in the 1st. 3 of them on a 3-pitch strikeout to Chris Bryant.
Well, you got to like the way that Tim Adelman is coming right out of the chute throwing strikes. I mean, when the wind's blowing out, the worst thing a pitcher can do here at Wrigley Field is nibble around the corners because you're afraid of home runs. You'll find yourself in hitters' counts, and then you'll really pay.
Votto just out of his reach, and that's into right field. Cubs have their first base runner on a single by Zobrist.
Zobrist waited on this changeup very well. I mean, he didn't look like he was fooled one bit about it. He got his foot down, but he kept his hands back. Votto looked like he may have tipped that ball.
Here's Addison Russell. You know, you talk to Cub fans, and you know, having been fortunate enough to live here for a number of seasons and announcing Cubs games, you know, you make a lot of friends if you're lucky when you live in a town long enough. I have a handful of buddies here in Chicago, born and raised, die-hard Cub fans, and they get a chance to watch them regularly, if not come occasionally. And you talk to them about all these stars and players having great years for the Cubs. Addison Russell, as he pops up to third, is only a .245 batter, only a .326 on base percentage. So maybe some of those numbers aren't all that appealing, you know, under the sabermetric sort of eye, if you will. But they'll tell you, no one's had more big hits this year than Russell, and he has 92 runs batted in.
Well, that is the fact that he's only 22 years old,
yeah.
So I think he's probably just beginning to just scratch the surface of what he can do.
Well, here's a guy, it has just been a terrible year. There's no other way to describe it. And that's Jason Hayward. They brought him in as one of their 2 big-ticket free agent signings, along with John Lackey, both coming over from St. Louis. A .230 batter with a total of 6 home runs and 43 runs batted in. If he weren't making the kind of money he's making, with some of the other talent they have in a backup role on this Cub team, he wouldn't be in the lineup.
Well,
in the playoffs.
He's going to be in the lineup because he's being paid big-time money for the next
Sure.
7 years after this year is over with. He will not be a free agent at the earliest until 2024. And he'll only be 33 years old. I mean, here's another guy that is still very young.
Sure.
I don't think even in their worst nightmare did they ever think that Jason Hayward, the guy who paid this much money to compete here at Wrigley Field, would have this kind of season. And the interesting thing about his contract, and there's Theo Epstein on the left, made the deal with Hayward for the free agent signing. It's Hayward that has the opt-out after next year, after 2018 and 2019.
You know, Chris, I'm amazed, and you and I were talking about this at dinner tonight, as Jason Hayward swings and misses. You know, the history of baseball, part of it can be told of ownership on a pretty regular basis probably doing some things in deals that they negotiate that in their real job, if you will, how they made the money to go out and buy a Major League Baseball team. They would never do in that world in a million years. And one of those is precisely what you were just starting to get into as it pertains to not only Hayward, but other players in general. You give a guy to opt out of his deal if he has 2 or 3 good years for you. Now he can go sign another monster contract with somebody else or with you. But at the same time, the team doesn't have any out.
That's called having a good agent. I'm looking for one.
Well, you're not lying. There's a bouncer down to third. Suarez will fire over to Votto, and this is a real nice start for Tim Adams. He's allowed 1 hit through 2 and leads 1-0.
Second when the Reds take on the Cubs for as low as $13. Thanks to Delta Airlines, fans in attendance will receive a 2016 team photo. For tickets, call 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com/tickets. With that day-night doubleheader on Saturday, the Reds needed a starting pitcher on Tuesday, tomorrow, and it will be Josh Smith. The Reds don't have many options in that department with Cody Reed on the shelf, etc. Homer Bailey still out. It was perhaps going to be Kivas Sampson. Brian Price says he didn't bounce back as well from his last couple of outings. Smith bounced back better, so it'll be back-to-back games in which players will be making their first big league starts here at Wrigley Field, even though Josh Smith has pitched out of the bullpen here.
Leadoff man is Adelman, and there's a fly ball into left center field. It'll be handled by Fowler. You know, it's hard to believe with rosters expanding and all of the pitchers you could have brought up. Now, I think everybody understands that maybe you're reluctant to do it with some young guys because it starts at clock of major league service time. I think we all agree at the end of the day, you get it. Especially when you're not in contention. The problem is for the Reds, do they have enough starting pitchers or pitchers, period, that are up here right now to finish this season?
I'm mystified that they would ever find themselves in that position. I mean, I'm looking at it from a player standpoint.
Sure.
If I'm a long reliever down there and I'm not getting much playing time or pitching time, and you have a chance to pitch at Wrigley Field at the end of the season, I mean, if I'm a little bit sore or if I'm a little bit, I'm going to find a way to make that start. I know maybe if you're going to risk injury, no. But if all you are is didn't come back as strong as you thought you would, man, I don't know. That's hard for me to understand.
A little flare single by Peraza, and he is aboard with 1 out. Reds in front 1-0 on the Brandon Phillips home run leading off the second inning, in case you're just joining us. Got to keep an eye now on Peraza. We know he can run. How about this combination, Chris, here with Hamill and Contreras, who we've not seen a lot from behind the plate since they brought him up from the minor leagues.
Contreras throws the ball well. The one thing about Contreras that he doesn't do yet, he doesn't calm the pitcher down. He moves around behind home plate a lot. And he does like to throw to the bases. Pickoffs are one of his favorite things to do. So if Peraza leans too far away from the bag, look for him to throw it behind the left-handed hitter and see if he can't pick him off first base.
Peraza 16 stolen bases. He's been thrown out 6 times. Goes, swing and a miss, throw down to second, and Peraza is out at second base. 2 away in the inning.
That's a very strong throw by the catcher Wilson Contreras, because he had a good jump off of Jason Hamill. Hamill long and slow to the plate. He's 6 feet 6 inches tall, and that's a quick tag with a throw that was pretty much on the money. That is only the second time this year the Cubs catchers have thrown out a runner going into second base or trying to steal off of Jason Hamill.
So the bases are clean with 2 away in the inning, and Hamill now zeroes in on Erie Barron, and a breaking ball is in there, a strike. And that'll be all for the Reds here in the 3rd. They get a 1-out single. But Peraza thrown out stealing. Reds lead 1-0 after 2.5. We call it Tri-State Tailgate. Jeff Pecoro and Tony Pike. Excellent show. They'll preview the big games in the area from the pros and college. It's Thursday at 6 on Fox Sports Ohio, presented by Columbia Hyundai and Genesis. How about some of the college games in our area over the weekend, or at least teams in our area? Louisville with that incredible demolition at home of Florida State. UC until the 4th quarter was right there running neck and neck, and then the wheels came off against Houston. And of course Ohio University goes to Tennessee, nearly pulls off the upset. And the Ohio State University Buckeyes, look out. They go into Norman and they just hammer the Oklahoma Sooners.
It's a good weekend.
Good weekend.
Good weekend to watch football. I know the Bearcat fans are probably disappointed. But
yep.
Boy, they played a good game for just about the entire contest.
They were right there.
Yeah.
And then, a couple interceptions. You're trying to catch up. run back for scores. Here's Chris Coghlan. He's back with Chicago. Spent a lot of time on the disabled list. And that one pulled foul. I tell you, this guy played well for the Cubs the last couple of years. Sort of, a rebirth of his major league career. Hey, remember, he started, and it looked like he was going to be one of the great young players in the game when he came up originally with the Marlins. But then injuries, ineffectiveness, primarily injuries, really took away and diminished some of his skills until he got a chance with the Cubs on a bad team 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and then part of a good team that went to the playoffs last year.
The start you were talking about when he was a National League Rookie of the Year in 2009, he was a former #1 pick for the Marlins, same school that Zach Cozart went to, University of Mississippi. And he could really do it all, but I think it was really just being derailed with injuries that has really set him back.
Two, and foul tip hit in out of the mitt of Tucker Barnhart.
His second stint with the Cubs, he spent the first 4 years of his career, Coghlan did, with the Marlins, and then here with the Cubs for a couple of years, and then had a short term over in Oakland with the Oakland Athletics earlier in the season, and he came over here.
Pulled foul and not a play. And it stays at 2-2 on Chris Coghlan. First 2 innings, 1 hit allowed by Tim Adelman. Struck out 2, has not walked a batter. This will be the 8th pitch coming up in this at bat. Right center field, but playable for Erie Barron. 1 away.
For those batters that have not faced Tim Adelman, he's got one little move in his delivery. He does it out of his full windup, and he does it out of his stretch, where he kind of hesitates and then shifts the ball in his glove. And I think that little hesitation gives hitters a little bit a chance to get off the mark. Just right about now, if you see that little hesitation right there, most hitters see that move to the plate and they think, here it comes, and then they've got to wait just a split second longer for him, and it's all about getting off stride.
Strike 1 to Hamill. Now, Chris, I'm going to throw you on a spot here, and I know you're not the general manager, but I mean, you know an awful lot about pitching, and you've watched a lot of guys come and go. From what little we have seen about him, and look, he was up early in the year, then he got hurt, strained the oblique. He's been a part of the rotation regularly now for a little over a month. As you start to look at spring training, we know about the wealth of talented young arms the Reds have, guys that throw a lot harder, as he fans Hamill for the second out of the inning, his 3rd overall. But going to spring training next year, where does Adelman fit in?
Well, I think he's right in the mix, to be honest with you. I really do. First of all, you got to find out what the health is of those pitchers that have been unable to finish the season. And if those guys are ready to go, then it puts a different spin on things. But he's got to be one of these guys. Who's to say that Adelman, had he not injured himself, he had an oblique that cost him 2.5 months, would not have been able to put up the same type of year that Dan Straley did. They're very similar type pitchers, although Straley has a little bit more big league experience than Adelman. I mean, neither of them are overpowering type pitchers, and of course you're going to give your #1 draft picks like Robert Stevenson more chances than, and Cody Reed more chances than you would a guy like Adelman or Straley. But when it all said and done, it's a matter of whether you get hitters out. I thought it was a very interesting comment that Brian Price made the other day after Saturday when the Reds played a doubleheader, and in that game they walked 19 batters. In 2 games they walked 19 batters in 1 day. And he said, we've got a bullpen down there of all these guys that throw 95 and 96 miles an hour, but yet we're leading the league in walks and we're leading the league in home runs given up. How about getting some guys that have command of the strike zone? And what you've seen here with the Cubs this year, and their starting rotation, it's a very good one. They've got more starting innings pitched than any other team in the National League this year. they have guys like John Lester. Yeah, he throws low 90s, but he's expert in control. John Lackey, no longer overpowering, expert in control. Arrieta throws hard, yes, and gets away with it with a little bit lack of control lately. But the guy that has surprised everybody this year, Kyle Kendricks, is a guy that, you know, tops out about 88 to 90 miles an hour, and he's leading the league in earned run average. All with command and being able to throw the changeup when you need it, and doesn't get himself in trouble by walking batters. And I'm wondering if baseball is going to see a shift back to command-type pitchers rather than bringing up kids as starters who just because they throw hard. Because we've seen 95 miles an hour is hitting speed.
And that man right there knows a lot about pitching.
Yes, he does.
3 balls, 2 strikes. Lengthy at bat for Fowler. And the beat goes on. The 8th pitch coming up in this at bat. Very efficient 38 pitches thus far in the game for Adelman. He's trying to retire Fowler and make it a second perfect inning through 3. He does. That's strike 3 call. 2 strikeouts in the inning, 4 in the game from Adelman. 1-0 Reds. Again, it was, Chris, for Joey Votto. Reds wearing their green unis yesterday. 4 hits, a double, an RBI, that home run.
Joey proving that it is easy to be green.
You're wondering why the Reds, and in case you missed it, they wore the green celebrating Irish Heritage Day yesterday at Great American Ballpark.
We had Hispanic Heritage Day on Friday.
Yep.
Oktoberfest all weekend.
Yeah, so you really got a little bit of everything. You got Hispanic heritage, a lot of our heritage in Cincinnati, the German heritage, and then the Fighting Irish on Sunday. There's a bouncer to the right side. And that'll take care of Votto on a 2-0 pitch to open up the Reds' 4th. Brandon Phillips with a home run, leading off the Cincinnati 2nd inning, and that is the only run of the game so far. Duvall struck out his first time up. Chris brought up earlier how great the Cubs have been all season long, and you could pick really any category you like. We showed you their starters ERA and how good that's been. That's caught on the line by Russell for the second out of the inning, just before it hit the ground. Reaches across his body and snatches it up there.
Got a good jump on this ball. Boy, this ball was really hit hard, but they're playing him to pull.
The Cubs moved into Wrigley Field in 1916. It's 101 seasons ago. This year is the 7th year in those 101 seasons where they have won 52 games or more at home. The all-time record, and man, you're talking about going way back, not quite to 1916, but in 1933 and in 1935, the franchise record 56 wins in a home season in this ballpark. Pretty amazing. A .727 winning percentage that year. They played fewer home games, which makes it even more amazing because you weren't playing as many games period back in those days as the 162 now.
The Cubs this year still have all those crazy start times. I mean, there was a stretch there where you didn't know if the game was going to be 12:20,
right,
1:20, 2:20, 7:20 at night, sometimes a little bit after 6.
Right.
I mean, and, it doesn't sound like much. If you're a fan that goes to a couple of games a week, it's no big deal. But if you're a player every day, that you're playing, a couple of day games after a couple of night games, and you're coming in from the West Coast and playing some day games, and it's hot and sticky, it can be very difficult. I always thought that was one reason why the Cubs struggle.
Well, it's so interesting, and I've talked about it before. We'll talk about it when the Cubs come to bat here in a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Ball thrown into the stands. Russell charging on the slowly hit roller by Brandon. So he'll be awarded second base. That's a straight air all the way. Where you see some of maybe the youth there on Addison Russell. It looked like if he just plants that right foot with a firm throw, he still gets Phillips. Would have been close. So here's Scott Schebler. He bounced out to the second baseman his first time up. Anyway, to finish a thought, getting back to the point you made, Chris, before they put in lights at Wrigley Field in 1988, 8/8/88, August 8th of that year, I had a chance to work with Ron Santo for a long time and got to know so many of his teammates. And I mean, the Cubs in the mid-'60s, the late '60s, the early '70s, they had 4 Hall of Fame players on one team.
Mm-hmm.
Santo, Ferguson Jenkins, Billy Williams, Ernie Banks. And then they had a lot of other really good players around them and a lot of really good pitchers. And of course, arguably the most famous team in the history of the franchise, certainly in more modern times, is the 1969 Cubs, who collapsed after having a huge lead, only to have it ripped away by the New York Mets, the Miracle Mets, who went on to beat Baltimore in the World Series that year. Anyway, Santo always used to say, and he was the ultimate Cub, God rest his soul, where the daylight and the heat never bothered us. But when you go to talk to all of his teammates, Billy Williams, Ernie Banks, Glenn Beckert, Randy Hundley, the catcher, catching every day, they'll tell you all those day games after playing at nighttime on the road, it beat them down.
Mm-hmm.
Year after year, wore them down. And then it was shortly thereafter where you started to get into the multiple starting times that you alluded to. When I was working here with the Cubs, and that's as recently as 1995, you were playing 12:05 on some getaway days, 1:20 most of the time. Fridays were always 2:20. Oh, and by the way, on a 9-game homestand, we're going to mix in 2 night games.
No routine at all.
No.
So it's tough to train puppies and baseball players with no routine.
And you'd like to think in some areas that the people would be a little bit better, but that's not always the case. Scheffler gone swinging, and that'll end the inning. An error, a man left. 1-0 still on the Phillips home run. Reds in front. On Fox Sports Ohio, brought to you by your local Ford dealer, Ford Go Further, and by Cincinnati Children's, changing the outcome together. City of broad shoulders, windy city, beautiful big city, Chicago. First of 3, just north of downtown Chicago. To your left, if you're looking in the direction out towards Lake Michigan. Move up to the left and a few blocks off the lake. Right smack dab in the middle of Wrigleyville, as they call it. Historic Wrigley Field.
Well, there are some changes underway here at Wrigleyville. I mean, almost a half a city block just completely knocked down, hauled away, and obviously some nice new stuff being built here.
Well, in about another year or two from now, and they're not exactly sure when everything's going to be completed. We showed you some of the pictures very early this season. They redid the Cubs clubhouse. They're putting in underground parking right off to the, outside of the third base side of the stadium. And we've seen the addition of the scoreboard, the big one out in left center and in right center, and they redid the bleachers last year. In fact, they weren't open, if you recall, at the very start of last season. But I mean, what they're doing just outside of the ballpark, I mean, right outside the ballpark, is just incredible. It's a multi-layer garage. You're going to have a little street like they have right next to Fenway, where they have multiple vendors and restaurants and bars and all that kind of thing. The Cubs themselves have bought up all the land. The owner, Tom Ricketts. There's strike 3 called, and Bryant knew it. And man, Adelman has a strikeout pitch working here tonight. That is
he's
5
got
of them.
Deception going. There's no question about that. And he's not afraid one bit. I mean, he's throwing all of his pitches, changeup, slider, like that, and he struck out Bryant the first time and gets him looking here the second time. The foul ball that went down there in that at bat with Chris Bryant. It's kind of interesting. It landed in the first row, and it would have been an out had the tarp not been in the way of Joey Votto. But we've seen a couple of plays this year on highlights, if you've seen them, where Anthony Rizzo has climbed on top of that tarp and had 1 foot on top of the wall to make a catch. And of course, you're not expecting Joey Votto to do that, visiting player right here. Now, if he stands on top of the tarp and maybe puts 1 foot on top of the wall, he would be able to make that catch. And just for a point of reference, it is in play to do that. You can stand on top of the wall and on top of the tarp. But once you step into the stands to make a catch, you can't do that. You can catch the ball in play and then fall into the stands.
I got to tell you, though, if you're playing in October, I like seeing Votto try to make that play. Playing here in September, when you're 100 games out of first place, no way. I don't want to see it in April when you're playing here from Votto.
Well, it's kind of like a catcher blocking the plate on a guy that used to roll him over. Here's the one we're talking about here with Anthony Rizzo. He's going to climb up on the wall, and that is legal. Now, even if he falls into the stands right there, it would have been a catch because he caught it in fair territory, then took it into a dead ball area.
There's a base hit into right center field.
And he can hit, too.
Yes, he can.
It's kind of interesting lineup, really, when you start dissecting the lineup with Joe Madden. Dexter Fowler sees as many pitches as anybody per plate appearance at the top of the lineup. And then you have Bryant and Rizzo. Bryant with 37 home runs, batting in the number 2 spot. Rizzo over 30 home runs, batting 3rd. And then you drop off to Ben Zobrist, a guy who is not a home run hitter at all, but he's batting cleanup. So Joe Madden is maybe reinventing the lineup. So far, so good.
So Zobrist singled his first time up. It's only the second Cub base runner. The Zobrist single, now the Rizzo single.
Now, obviously, if Jason Hayward was hitting the way they expected Jason Hayward to be, he would be somewhere in the top 4.
Yeah, probably second.
But this isn't one of those spring training lineups that Madden is running out there. I mean, they've got the division wrapped up, yes, but they still do not have a clinch to home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
He gave some guys the weekend off, a couple of players, here and there, Bryant, Rizzo, Russell. But you're right, tonight, by and large, he's going with the A team. There's that fine line, and there is no easy answer. We've seen managers that, sort of kept grinding. Tony La Russa is a guy that immediately comes to mind. And he didn't do it the same way every year in St. Louis. I think in some years you'd wrap it up earlier than other years. But, Chris, I mean, you got to give guys a little bit of a breather, but, when does it become too much? Line drive at Brandon for out number 2.
Well, as long as you have pitching, you can give guys some time off. And the Cubs have pitching. I mean, their top 3 guys in order probably would go John Lester, and then Kyle Hendricks, and then Jake Arrieta, although Arrieta has struggled a little bit here in the month of September. We will see Lester tomorrow and then John Lackey in the last game of this 3-game set on Wednesday. And the Reds have a day off in Milwaukee before they have that weekend series. Hope they haven't punched the greens up there.
They got some beautiful places up there now. And it's a good time of year to be there. Boy, most of the places right now in the heartland of America, and really a lot of places, but especially in our neck of the woods in the Midwest, this time of year we are just blessed with such incredible weather. By and large, not all the time. We had the floods, a lot of rain in Cincinnati last week. I don't want to overlook some people that are still going through some tough times back at home. I know a lot of folks around the Norwood area have had a lot of flooding and so forth, so I hear you. But September, October, November are generally spectacular months to be in this part of the country. You know, one of the decisions, and you started to talk about their pitching, as it's 3-0 on Addison Russell, and don't be surprised if he's hacking. I mean, when you've hit 20 home runs and knocked in 92, you're not afraid to cut it loose. And he does on 3-0 and fouls it away. But, you know, do you navigate at all your rotation based on, you know, who's done it at home as opposed to maybe not so great on the road? Hendricks is another guy who has just been beyond belief, home and road, but especially at home, where he has a 1.32 ERA. So in other words, I think we universally agree that in a playoff series based on experience and success over the longer haul, Arrieta and Lester are your two top guys. Now, Hendricks is having the kind of year this year where he might be your best pitcher, period. But would you start him in a game 1 or game 2 at home and let Lester or Arrieta be pushed back to game 3? Those are, you know, just some of the things a manager has to decide upon. And it's just in time to get the sliding Rizzo, who was going hard on that ground ball to short. Cubs might have it wrapped up, but don't tell Rizzo. He's still going all out.
And Straley finally got the monkey off his bat yesterday with a third-inning single. The dugout went crazy, smiles all around, and I talked to him today about it.
You gotta have some stuff to have some fun with, and that's definitely something for this group was my lack of hitting. So to get it done was just something that was just a lot of fun.
How about the 021 batting average? That has never looked so good.
It never has. I've never been more excited to look up on the board and see some numbers, not just 3 zeros. So it was pretty rewarding to see that at the end of the day yesterday.
Smile on his face. He says it was just pure joy, and you better believe he's gotten some ribbing since. In fact, you hear, look out, Babe Ruth is coming through. He's been getting it since yesterday, but all in fun.
That's right, Jim. I mean, that secret agent stuff, that secret agent 021, it beats secret agent 000.
Well, you know, even though he hasn't hit, he's been very good with being able to move runners over sacrifice bunts. I mean, he handles the bat well. Maybe that's one area, part of his game. You know, in the National League, you got to be a complete player as a pitcher. And if you can help yourself now and then with a base hit, drive a run in here, extend an at bat, then you may pick up an extra win or two.
Game one of this series, we are in the top of the 5th inning, and the Reds have a 1-0 lead. It was Brandon Phillips who led things off in the Cincinnati second with a home run to the bleachers in left center field. 1 run, 2 hits for the Reds, no runs, 2 hits for Chicago. Three and 2 on Suarez, to be followed by Tucker Barnhart, and then the pitcher Tim Adelman. Jim Day always gets that sweet seat here at Wrigley Field. Now, he's a little further away from the action than he is at our ballpark, or a lot of ballparks, when he's on the inside part of the dugout rather than the far side of a dugout. There's a shattered bat roller at Russell. But Jim, you know, down there you get to hang out with some of the fans and get to know some of the folks. I would imagine you see some repeat visitors from time to time down there, right?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. There are fans that well, they'll call me by my name. Hey, Jim, welcome back, etc. But being at the far end of the dugout is far more dangerous down here, believe it or not. Even though I'm farther away, man, the foul balls just come rocketing down here. And that throw from Addison Russell that went by nearly hit me earlier, but it's a big old hang with it.
Well, you know, then be careful down there. I didn't know that. Didn't think about that. Makes perfect sense.
It's all right, though. It's good seat.
Do people ever offer to buy you a beer down there?
All the time. Oh, all the time.
And you only go for it about half the time?
Yeah, about half the time. No, none of the time.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
There's
Did
a
you
beer
say
guy
none
right
of the
here.
time?
There's a beer guy right here, right now.
Well, I know he's standing there, but I'm asking. I know the vendor comes up and down, but I'm asking, does anybody offer to buy you?
Oh, all the time, yeah. So there's particularly here in the front row. There's always Reds fans, and my man right here. This is Ted Power's wife, by the way. Lovely.
Stephanie?
Yes, Stephanie right here. So she's enjoying the game tonight.
One and two the count, and it is pulled foul. One ball and 2 strikes. Now, did I see Beth Castellini sitting down there by you, or is it just her husband Billy's in town?
Just her husband Billy, my man, sitting here.
Okay.
He's looking good, feeling good.
He's always looking good.
He's always looking good. You're right.
Hey, he can give you a golf lesson while he's down there, Jim.
Well, I need it. I don't think we have enough time left in the night.
Billy's fun guy, good guy. There's strike 3 call to Tucker Barnhart. 2 away in the inning.
Yeah, both these pitchers are pretty much right on top of their game tonight. Very efficient. Both of them have thrown a lot of strikes. The only blemish on the record of Jason Hamill is that home run hit by Brandon Phillips back in the 2nd inning.
Well, here's Adelman. Unforgettable games, undeniable greatness, unstoppable drama. Cubs will be a part of the 2016 postseason. It begins on October 4th. Go to MLB.com/postseason for a full schedule. Now, you know, the postseason dates are all set. National League, American League, that kind of thing. The only thing that can throw it for a loop is if you get into what we saw, Chris, a couple of years ago over in the American League, where you have to play a play-in game and then another play-in game. You know, the way that would happen is if 2 teams tie for the 2nd wild card spot, or in that case 2 teams were tied for a divisional championship. And so then you got to play a game to then play the wild card game. Here's a swing and a miss in out of inning, and that was the year that actually hurt a divisional champion having to play a game.
On Fox Sports Ohio, it's Reds Live, the pregame edition. First look at the lineups, features, interviews, and more. It's brought to you by Ray St. Clair Roofing. Let's check out our Quicken Loans Rocket Arms, and there's some Rocket Arms coming out of those Chicago Cubs this year. John Lester leading them in strikeouts, 179 punch-outs in 184 innings pitched, 29 starts, and Jake Arrieta right on his heels with 176 strikeouts and 185 and a third innings, both with 29 starts. So Lester's the starter tomorrow night, so you know you're going to face some outstanding pitching when you face the Cubbies nowadays.
No two ways about that, but the Reds will show up. They'll take their chances, and you mentioned Josh Smith will be on the mound tomorrow night for the Reds. Well, there are so many important games to be played by so many teams. What with the wild card races, divisional races, and a couple of divisions being so tight. But I mean, if you're Boston and Baltimore and Toronto, the Yankees are starting to slip out of that equation. You know, every game you play the rest of the season is like a playoff game. Same holds true now in the National League for teams like the Mets, the Giants, the Cardinals, to a lesser extent Miami. But you know, you look at the National League, Chris, only two of those three, one of them's going home among the trio of the Mets, the Giants, and the Cardinals.
You know, one thing the wild card format has done, it has made it very interesting for those teams that are on the fringe.
No doubt.
And I think it's made the trade deadline very interesting because you really can't predict some teams being, you know, sellers at the deadline versus, you know, buyers at the deadline. It's made it for a lot of fun.
I don't think there's any doubt when all is said and done, and you don't have to go, you know, move forward into baseball 20, 30, 40 years from now. For as much grief as Bud Selig took when he initially became commissioner of baseball, what with the work stoppage as that pitch hits Contreras looked like a breaking ball that just never broke. Let's take a look. Yep. Barely got him. But with all the grief that Bud Selig, and he was the very face of that work stoppage, I believe it was, what, 1994, if I remember right, drifting into 95 in spring training. But once Selig and the Players Union navigated through all that, the next 25 plus years of his stewardship of this game will be looked upon as very, very good in just about every single way. The revenues in baseball are long. Now, the one area where, of course, many feel like he looked the other way, the steroid situation, that's a legitimate point. There's no doubt about that. But the advent of the wild card has been a huge success. When Bud Selig took over, if you're talking about a television contract, baseball didn't have one nationally. And some might say what happened anyway, but the bottom line is they didn't have one. They were paying people to carry their games on television. And there's a liner caught. So look, you know, that wild card thing, and ultimately that was the point we were getting at here, is that the wild card has been a tremendous idea for baseball, and even adding the second team, which some people felt like you're really diluting the product, doesn't look like that way so far.
Well, especially in those seasons in which a wild card team ended up going deep or winning the World Series. And saying, well, how fair is this for a team that barely got in? Maybe they were just barely over the 500 mark, but, you know, happened to put a good win streak together in the postseason. That's the way it rolls, and it has been very interesting. I mean, the people that follow the Cubs, there's a lot of excitement here at this ballpark, obviously, this year. They're getting over 40,000 per game. They draw anyway. But, you know, they've played a lot of meaningless games, really, in the month of September when they've got the thing wrapped up.
Well, she's been coming here forever. I mean, forever. Still smiling. And there are a lot of people out there that love the Cubs. There are a lot of people out there that can't stand it. But it's people like you're seeing now that have followed this franchise since they were little girls. You know, in their case, that's 70, maybe 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they have never seen their team play in a World Series. Forget win one. Fly ball into left center field, and this will end the inning. Cubs have not had a runner get into scoring position through 5 against Tim Adams. 1-0 Reds in front.
Recently took that to a whole new level.
Ever since we've lived a mile away from Wrigley Field, I've wanted to ride my bike to the field. I've been doing that this year, and I thought, you know what? I just need to bring my uniform home and ride ready for the game on the way to the field.
With
my PF Flyers on. Guaranteed to make a kid run faster and jump higher.
And there he is riding away to Wrigley Field. And boy, I did that so many times as a kid. Full uniform, glove and all. Ben Zobrist playing a kid's game.
Well, Ben Zobrist has been in this game for a long, long time, and he's practically seen it from every angle imaginable. And I mean that every angle on the field imaginable, because he's played just about everywhere. And boy, he played on some bad teams for a long, long time until he finally had a chance. You know, Tampa Bay, they had a couple of years there. One year they reached a World Series, and they were competitive. But it's not like playing for Kansas City last year when he was traded over, and the Cubs now this year. He is playing on a legitimate World Series contending team. One away in the inning, and of course he won a ring last season while with the Royals at the end of the year.
Now, one reason why he's here, obviously, when he spent time down at Tampa Bay, he played for Joe Maddon. And Joe Maddon, you know, really saw him as a super utility player. He's going to play him all over the place. And as it turned out, Addison Russell takes over. He played second base last year, takes over shortstop this year, and it opens up a spot for Zobrist. And that's why he's getting everyday playing time. And he's been an everyday player a lot in his career. Mm-hmm. Two-time All-Star Zobrist was, both times with Tampa Bay. Just a solid player all the way around.
And really their super utility guy now is Javier Baez. He's a guy that's played first, second, third, short, left field.
Well, he was the one who was supposed to nail down the second base spot because of his tremendous power potential. It just hasn't worked out, at least not yet. Still very young.
One and two, the count on Erie Byron. That ball driven into right center field, hit hard, and it will scoot by Hayward out there, and Erie Byron's going to end up at third base. No throw, and Erie Byron slides headlong in with a one-out triple.
Yeah, it's like triples are wild for Erie Byron. Is that his third?
Mm-hmm. Two of them as a pinch hitter.
On back-to-back nights. Boy, you don't see very many balls misplayed by Jason Hayward in right field. He's one of the better defenders that you'll find in the outfield in all of baseball. That ball just got right by him. I'm not even so sure in a one-run game like this why you would pitch a Joey Votto here. And I know that he'll make outs, but you bring the infield in, he's already a 400 hitter, you know, here in the second half of the season. You bring the infield in on a 250 hitter, you make him a 400 hitter. You bring the infield in on a 400 hitter, you probably make him a 650 hitter.
Pops this one up. Now this is a long run for everybody. Boy, and that's when you're living right. Erie Byron's going to score. I mean, that should have been an out, and it should have been the runner staying at third, but with the infield drawn in, that little pop-up falls in for an RBI single, and the Reds are glad to get it.
Well, Joey's probably thinking, I've hit enough line drives right at him, maybe into the shift, that I'm due one of these or two of these, right? And he would have a legitimate point if he felt like that. But when you're going good, and my point about why would you even pitch to him?
No doubt.
The way Votto's going right now, not only is he hitting the ball hard and taking a lot of walks, he's getting a few of those too. But the Reds will take it.
You know, it's one of those situations. It's a great point you bring up, Chris. It's not only Joey Votto, but if this game was being played in the second week of October in a 1-0 game in the 6th inning, if the Cubs are behind and the other team has a really good left-handed batter coming up in that exact same situation with a guy who's waiting on deck, who's had a nice year, he's hit some home runs, in Duvall's case, knocked in a lot of runs, but he also does that a lot. Joe Maddon's going to walk that left-handed batter.
Or he's going to go to the bullpen and bring in a specialty left-handed pitcher.
Good point. But in a 1-0 game in the 6th, you know, maybe he decides to stay with the starter, but he's not going to pitch to a guy like Votto.
You're right.
A hitter like Votto.
So that's how you manage differently in October than you do in September.
See, but I don't understand why you do. That's the thing I don't get. Why? And then look, Joe Maddon's forgotten more baseball than I. But we're always trying to create in life and in sports real game or real life situations. Hamill is a guy that might be in this exact situation in 2 weeks from now. So why not give him a chance to go to work on a right-handed batter with runners on the corners and try and get a double play ball than pitch to, in this case, the best hitter in the National League?
Unfortunately, the best hitter in the National League is going to be watching October on TV.
Right. But there's some other good left-handed hitters up there that'll be coming up. We know that. Now this ball is crushed by Duvall. It's a line drive out.
Well, he has hit 2 right on the button, has nothing to show for it.
That's a loud out again indeed by Duvall. And here comes Brandon, who's reached twice. A solo home run in the 2nd. Reached on an error in the 4th.
Chris Bosio is the Cubs pitching coach.
One-time Red left-hander Travis Wood begins to get loose in the Cub bullpen. Reds are seeing the Cubs for the first time since July, and it was before the trade was made. As you look at the winning percentage by Hamill, and that's in home games here in Chicago. Pretty good names on that list, starting with Rick Sutcliffe. Well, he was a good pitcher.
Yes, he was.
Well, anyway, the Reds have not seen Aroldis Chapman in a Cub uniform since that deal was made.
No, but he spent a lot of time over by the Reds dugout before the ball game today, visiting with all of his old teammates, the trainers, of course. Tomas Veras, who's interpreter, they were very close.
I don't know how many guys are all that interested in facing him on the mound.
I think probably none of them. Well, one way to keep him out of a game is have a lead going into the ninth inning.
Aroldis before the game. Hanging down there with Yumbo, among others. There's Tomas wearing the glasses there to the left. Rick Stowe, closest to you.
One for sleeping, one.
What a weapon he could be in the postseason. There's no two ways about that as Smith joins Wood in the bullpen. Hamill has come to a grinding halt out there on the mound. He must be running out of steam here, and it's only his 87th pitch of the game. Fly ball, and short of the track, that will end the inning. But the Reds get a run. Iribarren a triple, Votto with a single to knock him in. 2-0 Reds after 5½. Brought to you by T-Mobile. Sean Rodriguez, well, the Reds know all about him. Named the National League Player of the Week, along with Chris Drury in Arizona. He's had a nice first year out there in the desert. I said Brandon Drury. He's had a nice first year out there in Arizona.
You know, they haven't had a whole lot to be happy about out there, but they have the makings of a pretty good team.
Tell you what, they made the first sort of head to roll, so to speak. Former Red executive, and really number 4 in command, I guess technically, among the baseball operations department. Number 3 really, and Deshaun Watson. His contract was not renewed yesterday. You know, they've got all those guys out in Arizona. Tony La Russa, president of baseball operations. Dave Stewart, the general manager. Deshaun Watson, his right-hand man. All of their contracts are up at the end of the year. And according to Tony La Russa, he didn't even know it. Wasn't paying attention to it. And everybody's wondering what's going to happen out there in the desert. So Deshaun Watson is let go. Does that mean same's going to hold true for Dave Stewart? I mean, they have had an awful year. It's one thing to know you're going to be bad when the season begins. It's another thing to think you're going to be really good and to be awful.
Well, I think we really made it look even worse than it could have been, is the fact that when they made some trades, they traded away some of their top prospects. The top prospect, as a matter of fact.
Nice play there by Duvall.
Last year's first pick in the draft, Dansby Swanson, who came out of Vanderbilt. The Diamondbacks had that pick. They took him, and then they traded him to Atlanta, and he made the major leagues this year. That doesn't look very good. But you got to be, I mean, if you think you're close, sometimes you just got to go for it.
Especially when you look at the guy they traded him to get. And a big part of that deal was to acquire Shelby Miller. He has made 18 starts and has a 2-12 record with an ERA of almost 7. It's a fly ball to left, and Bryant retired for the 3rd time tonight.
Tell you what, Tim Alderman is getting the ball just inside, perfect spot on Chris Bryant. And you know, when you get a big guy like Bryant, he's about 6 feet 5 inches tall. He's got long arms. You throw the ball right underneath his hands, and he just can't get that bat head on that ball, at least tonight. First time he's made contact, but he's 0 for 3. You start throwing him out across the plate a little bit, and he gets his arms extended on one of those, and he can hit it out of sight.
Well, that's what he's done against the Reds all season long. Bryant has 9 home runs against Reds pitching this season. In 13 games. You know, we brought up some of the numbers this year, their home record, going back to the 19 teens. Well, the 9 home runs this year for Bryant against the Reds are tied for the most home runs by a Cub player against any Cincinnati team in a single year since 1913. That's along with Derek Lee in 2005. Ball's in the air down the left field line towards the corner, and it's up against the ivy. This will be a 2-base hit with 2 outs by Rizzo, but it stays in the yard.
Well, if you're Tim Alderman, you've taken. In fact, that pitch was probably a ball. It looked like it was outside, a breaking ball he tried to come on the back door with, and Rizzo hits it, and he's not sure what's going to happen to that ball. As it turns out, it bounces into the ivy. Now, if the ball gets stuck in the ivy here, the outfielder he can't find it. You should raise your hands. But if you go back, if you panic and then go back in for it after you've raised your hands, you're going to make the ball live. So only raise your hands if you know for a fact that it's stuck in the ivy and it's not coming out.
Here's Zobrist. Strike one on the outside corner. Zobrist has swung the bat well tonight against Adelman. Really the only Cub to make solid contact in each of his 2 trips. He had a single to right in the 3rd and a liner at Brandon Phillips in the 4th. 78th pitch of the game for Tim Adelman. First Cub to reach second base in the game tonight is Rizzo on a 2-out double. High fly ball, and this should end the inning. It will. What a night so far in his Wrigley Field debut for Adelman. 6 innings of shutout baseball. Game summary. Brandon Phillips leading off the 2nd inning. His first home run at Wrigley Field since 2013. And then in the 6th, after a triple with 1 out by Ari Byron, a pop-up against a drawn-in infield by Botto that plates a 2nd run. But what a night tonight for Adelman.
And he's made it look very simple. In that way, he's pitched a lot like Dan Straley. I mean, he hasn't, doesn't walk very many guys, although Straley's had a couple of games where he's walked some batters, and so has Adelman. But tonight he's right on things.
1 pitch, 1 out to begin the 7th on a bouncer by Shevler.
I mean, I go back to saying what I said earlier, is that had Tim Adelman stayed healthy all summer long, who's to say that he would not have put together the same type of season that Straley has? Really interesting for the Reds development-wise, because you got a couple of pitchers that are in their upper 20s now with Straley and Adelman, who show you some signs of being consistent on the mound going into 2017.
Suarez, and he started to look like he went around. He did on the appeal to first. A pair of ground ball outs, and now a strikeout for Suarez. He's 0 for 3, 2 down here in the 7th.
That is Jason Hamill's go-to pitch. When all else fails, he'll throw the slider, and he throws it about one every 3 pitches. He's got a good one. It goes down, it goes away from right-handers. He's a big, tall guy, 6 feet 6 inches tall, and I still think Suarez may have held back.
Tucker 0 for 2 is grounded out to first and struck out looking. Fastball away. Only 1 walk combined by the pitchers tonight, and that was a 2-out walk in the first inning to Joey Votto. Adelman's not walked the batter. He's fanned 5. Hamill has struck out 6. Adelman did hit a batter. That was Contreras with 1 out in the 5th inning. 4 hits for the Reds, 3 hits for Chicago. Adelman waits in the on-deck circle with nary a soul in sight down in that Reds bullpen mound.
Well, what a great spot for a breaking ball like that. The last 2 pitches that Jason Hamill has thrown Tucker Barnhart have been down and in. Barnhart can't lay off of him, but there's no way that if he puts a barrel on the ball, he's ever going to keep it fair. So you tease him a little bit a couple of times down and in, and then he might go up and away right here to see if Barnhart won't swing through one. You know, talking to some of the Reds players about Hamill, you know, you look at the radar gun, it tells you one thing. You know, that last pitch was a curveball of 77, but he averages about 91 or 92, but it seems faster because he looks like he's got a smooth delivery, and he's a big, tall guy, and he's closer to home plate when he releases it.
8th pitch of this at bat. And there'll be a 9th, full count to Barnhart. Payoff pitch. And a pop-up in the short left center field. Fowler will give way to Coghlan. Nope, Fowler going to take it. And a 1-2-3-7. They stand and stretch and sing in Chicago. Reds sing into a 2-0 lead. Post-game fireworks show of the season presented by Adams Recovery Center. For tickets, call 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com. Chris, one of your all-time favorite rock and rollers you spotted in the crowd a minute ago. As Tim Adelman will take the mound, bottom of the 7th inning. Reds with a 2-0 lead. He will face Addison Russell, Jason Hayward, and Contreras due up third. And he starts him with a breaking ball, a check swing, no. It's low to Russell. I mean, you picked him out right away. Now some are going to wonder, where do I recognize him?
No. I see. I picked him out as somebody who I thought I recognized, but you knew, you pulled his name up immediately.
No, I pulled up the band. And pulling up the long ball is Russell. And it's a 1-run game.
One of the few mistakes, maybe the only mistake that Tim Adelman has made on the night. He knew it immediately when it left his hand.
All right, now Mike Jenkins will come out to the mound. Reds have action in their bullpen. Reds have Blake Wood down there throwing.
You know, this used to be a tactic where you could stall a little bit and give your guy in the bullpen more time to warm up, and now with baseball installing that 30-second clock, I mean, I'm not so sure that 30 seconds buys you a whole lot.
Good point. Nearly 40,000 on hand here tonight. Sellout crowd. Addison Russell. It's his 21st home run. And a liner into center field, and Erie Barron in to get it. That's a big play. In a 1-run game, that's a huge play.
You can't hit it much harder than Jason Hayward hit it right there. It was probably knuckling on Erie Barron when it went out in the center field. In fact, it looked like, yes, it was knuckling, and he comes over to make a nice catch.
With that crowd tonight of 39,000 and change. And unbelievably, the Cubs have eclipsed the 3 million mark in attendance. 3 million. They still have, what, 6 more home dates left before wrapping up the year on a road trip. The final 3 days of the season, of course, will be in Cincinnati.
Yeah, they play this entire week at home. They end the weekend this homestand with 3 games against the St. Louis Cardinals.
Those will be attendance games of 42, 43
At
with standing room only.
They'll be squeezing them in here.
Be one of the few times in the history of those two franchises, and both of them go back a long, long way, where the Cardinals will be the desperate team with a Cub team that's already clinched a postseason berth in the final week of the year. And the Cardinals, every win they can get, and we're tied at 2. We have seen this show before. Happened very early in the year when we were here in April when Brandon Finnegan was cruising right along. And now 2-0 becomes 2-2.
It looks like almost an identical pitch that the one that Addison Russell hit, except it was down around the waist. You see the reaction from Tucker Barnhart. Oh, right there.
So Adelman will be taken out. What a shame.
Yeah, that's the kind of pitch that you throw, and you hang it up there, and it keeps you awake for night after night after night, thinking, why didn't I just throw the slider? Why didn't I throw the slider? Why? He pitched a heck of a game.
BR Skyline Chili call to the bullpen. 2-2. Bottom. Reds had a 2-0 lead when the Cubs came to bat here in the bottom half of the 7th inning, with solo home runs by Russell and Contreras have chased Adelman, tied the game 2-2. Part of a double switch here made by Ryan Price. That home run allowed by the Reds has tied the Detroit Tigers for the most home runs by a pitching staff in a single season in baseball history. Blake Wood to face Coghlan, and that's down the right field line into the corner. That is a fair ball. And Coghlan with a double to greet Blake Wood.
That ball just ran right back. He wanted it inside and came right back over the center of the plate. Coghlan looking fastball the entire at bat. So they're going to go to the bench for a pinch hitter.
Yep, Tommy LaStella will bat for Hamill, who still has a chance to get a win. And he was on the hook trailing 2-0. So he goes 7 innings here tonight. Allows 4 hits, 2 runs earned. He walked 1 and struck out 6. Final numbers on Adelman: 6 1/3, 5 hits, 2 runs, Fan 5, walk none. That allows it 2 home runs, and Wood takes over on the mound. 1 out, go ahead run at second. Straight up in the air. Two out. So here's Fowler. 98-mile-per-hour fastball ran in on him. Strike 1. Runner at second, the go-ahead run. And it's low to Fowler.
Well, Fowler's a guy that'll work the count. You said that earlier when he came up to the plate against the starter Tim Adelman. Here's the numbers on it. Jason Worth leads the league. Dexter Fowler right there. This is 4.4 pitches per plate appearance. Joey Votto number 5 on that list. The most patient hitters in the National League.
Just given his team a lead on a base hit to center field with 2 outs. That's only a 3-pitch at bat, but that's a money at bat.
Now they tried to come right back in there again. It appeared with a fastball. Barnhart moves in. Look at the run on that ball, though. It just comes back. You know, inner third is not inside. On the black or off the plate is inside. And when you've got as much run on the fastball as does Blake Wood, you know, you've got to start it a little bit more inside. You can't make that mistake out over the plate, not with a runner in scoring position. And the Cubs take the lead.
Well, here's Bryant. Adelman did a real nice job on this big Chicago slugger. Struck him out swinging, struck him out looking.
Now
got him on a fly ball to left.
Every first pitch that Wood has thrown has been an inside fastball. To Coughlin, LaStella, Fowler. See if he does the same thing to the right-hander here.
Effort tonight by that young man. Cubs finally break through with a pair of solo home runs to knock him out of the game. Straight up in the air. Boy, he just missed it. Should be the final out. But a 3-run 7th. Russell a homer, Contreras a homer, Fowler breaks a tie. A couple of changes made for Chicago, 3 all told. Javier Baez takes over at second base, pushing Ben Zobrist out into left field. And now all of a sudden, Jason Hamill has a chance to win the game. He left trailing 2-0. But the Cubs will need help from their bullpen, and that starts with Rondon. And if he protects a lead, we know who's behind him.
Yeah, they have a pretty good 1-2 punch, you might say, for the back end of the ball game. Hector Rondon has been the closer. I mean, he's got 18 saves on the year, and that pretty much stopped when Aroldis Chapman came over. He's had some awfully good years here, Rondon has, and it was already a strong bullpen, although they did have some injuries and they had some setbacks, and the addition of Chapman really helped them out. He had 30 saves last year, Rondon did. 29 the year before that.
On the ground to the right side, that'll take care of De Jesus, who bats for the first time. That was part of that double switch when Blake Wood came in the game. He replaced Eugenio Suarez. So here's Peraza as we go back to the top of the order. The Reds in Fox Sports Ohio would love to send out a big happy birthday. Let's go up to Lima, Ohio. Donald Stockton. He's known all over Lima. Donald Stockton celebrates his 100th birthday today. The big Centennial B-Day for Donald Stockton. Happy birthday, Donald. I know you're still with us watching the ball game. How about that? Wow.
You know, a lot of folks come up from Cincinnati for these games. There's a couple celebrating their 4th anniversary. He's a fantasy camper. His dad's been there every year, and he catches every inning of every game. Ralph Dusing, but happy anniversary to Mark and Char Dusing. 4 years of marital bliss.
Good for them. And as Harry Carey used to say, you can't get to 5 unless you get to 4.
Harry's a smart guy.
He really was. Well, what a character, what a character. He was something. That one lofted into short right center, and that falls in a hit. That's his second one of those tonight for Jose Peraza. He'll take it. The Reds will take it. That's a tying run aboard.
Yeah, the other one went to left field. This one goes to right field. He gets his share of these because he puts the ball on the play and he'll give himself up early on. One thing you wonder about Peraza, will he ever be able to, become more patient at the plate, maybe work some more walks? But I like what I've seen so far of this very young Reds player. 22. I'm not sure if he's turned 23 yet, but very young.
Nothing in one on Ari Barron, who had a triple into right center field his last time up. And scored on the single by Votto. Peraza cut down trying to steal back into third. He has 16 stolen bases. He's been thrown out now 7 times. Reds batting here in the 8th. They know Aroldis Chapman would be out on that mound in the 9th. Should they stay a run behind the Cubs? And Ari Barron, a big swing and a miss. 2 out. Here comes Votto. Reds looking for a big hit from their first baseman.
it does not look like you're going to see the Votto-Chapman matchup tonight, unless the Reds can put a little action together here.
First pitch breaking ball. That was a beauty right there.
He's got a good one. And he throws it a lot, too. A slider. He throws his average. His fastball is up over 96. So Votto's thinking fastball. When somebody throws it that hard, then he drops that little slitty on you. Might not be a bad idea for Peraza to take a chance, although maybe you don't want to get thrown out with Votto in the batter's box. They have not thrown a runner out trying to steal yet this year off of Rondon.
Just from a look at the lead, it looks like Peraza's been told to drop anchor over there. We'll see. That could change pitch to pitch. And a miss, and now Rondon ahead at 1-2 strikes. That's a good sharp tilt to that slider.
That's where you want to throw it to. Start at the knees.
And that one is shot into left field, a base hit. What a beautiful piece of hitting yet again by Joey Votto on a 2-strike pitch. And that keeps the Reds inning alive.
I mean, some guys, when they get 2 strikes on them, they're almost done. But you get the feeling when Votto has 2 strikes on him, he's got the pitcher right where he wants him. That he's seen enough pitches at that point that he pretty much knows what he's going to throw. And if he throws on the outer part of the plate, he's going to hit it hard somewhere. I think Rondon is, you know, Chris Bosio went out to probably say, hey, remember what this guy likes to hit, in case Rondon wasn't paying attention during the scouting meeting. And he's telling the infielders, I'm probably going with the slider. That's the way just about everybody pitches Adam Duvall. Fastballs in, sliders away.
Tying run at second base, go ahead, run at first. And they start him off with a slider that's low. Ball 1 on Adam Duvall.
Joey Votto now batting .321.
Season high. 4 hits yesterday, 2 more tonight. Straight up in the air on a 1-0 pitch, and this will be all for the Reds in the 8th. 3-2 Chicago. Sports Ohio brought to you by Kroger. Stop by your neighborhood Kroger to save big store-wide. Great food, low prices. Kroger. And by Toyota. For over 30 offers, visit buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Blake Wood came in with the bases empty in a 2-2 game. He allowed a double and a single to give Chicago its current 3-2 advantage. As the Cubs bat in the bottom of the 8th, and as we expected, you look down there and foul ground up the third base line. And the imposing figure for so many, many years, his entire major league career, wearing a Cincinnati Reds uniform, is Aroldis Chapman. Traded to the Yankees, of course. Served a 1-month suspension due to the incident at his home down in Florida during the offseason. Ultimately, no charges were pressed against Chapman. Baseball didn't wait around for that part of it. They suspended him for 1 month. And then,
which was really a lot less, I think, than some people around baseball thought that would happen to Aroldis Chapman.
You know, it's kind of like when you're trying to predict people's medical future, as we hear so much about from time to time. You're reading the papers about this or that. Speculating on how long a commissioner of baseball is going to suspend somebody. You better have real good inside information before you start betting money on that.
Well, the lucky hitters, if you're wondering, for the Reds next inning, Phillips, Schebler, and Suarez, or Phillips, Schebler, and a pinch hitter.
And you wonder, are they going to let
Ramon Cabrera? No, who would they have to up there?
Well, you could have Holt, Renda, Selsky, Ramon Cabrera, as you mentioned, all right-handed batters, and or in Cabrera's case, a switch hitter. Fouled out of play by Zobrist. Ball and 2 strikes on Zobrist. Two and 2 the count. And it's hooked foul. Well, we remind you the Reds have 3 more games left. On Saturday, October the 1st, you can be there as low as $13, the Reds and the Cubs, thanks to Butterbee's American Grill. The first 25,000 fans on Saturday, October 1, receive a Team Cincinnati t-shirt. Come on down to the ballpark. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Final day of September, 1st and 2nd of October. To end the 2015 or 2016 season. That's what happens when you get in at 2 o'clock in the morning. And not for reasons you might suspect when you come to Chicago. There's a high fly ball in the straightaway center.
You mean for all the wrong reasons?
Yeah, that's right. And that was just the old travel schedule. You made the drive up today. Nice day to drive.
Not a bad drive at all.
Nope.
Cincinnati, Chicago. You know, when you factor in the amount of time it takes to fly,
there's no doubt.
Going through both airports,
that's
parking
right.
your car,
Traffic,
and then trying to get from O'Hare back into the city. You know, it's a nice drive.
Very nice. I can't even begin to think about counting how many times I've made that ride.
You know you're getting close when you get to Wind Farm City.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Everybody who's made that drive will know exactly what I'm talking about. But for all those Edith Stuckey billboards that you see along the way.
Well, some people do. Not all. For some people, you see the words "hell is real." That one hooked into left field down the line. And Addison Russell, who got the Cubs on the board with that solo home run an inning ago, gets a 2-out single here in the bottom of the 8th.
We were talking about at dinner, Tom, how the Cubs ended up with Addison Russell. And he was involved actually with a trade that included Dan Straley. He came over from the Oakland A's in exchange for Jeff Samardzija.
It was a trade deadline deal.
Right at the deadline. That happened in 2014. Excuse me, Jason Hamill and Samardzija went to the A's.
Yeah, then they re-signed Hamill at the end of the year.
Right.
I think that's where fans and even those of us that, are fortunate to make our living covering and commentating and watching baseball each and every day. I think the first thing you sometimes, and you hit the nail on the head when we brought up this topic at dinner tonight, I think it's the only natural question, and look, you could pick any team in baseball because any team has made a trade where you're hoping to bring back something big in return for a veteran guy you're giving up. I think a lot of people say, how in the world did the Cubs get Addison Russell? And at the time, he was a number 4 or 5 overall rated prospect in baseball, in some circles higher than that.
20 years old.
Right. And you say, how did they get him for Jeff Samardzija, who's a good pitcher? But, I mean, he's nowhere in the same galaxy as fill in the blank many other pitchers that have been traded in recent years around the trade deadline. And you say, well, where's our Addison Russell?
I think it's all about the timing. It's when you get more than one team involved in bidding for the players that you're willing to move. I mean, at the time of that trade, it was kind of funny because Samardzija had a very good earned run average, but he was 2-7 win and losses.
This ball is killed into left center field, and that's a home run. Been a rough night here for Blake Wood. And the Reds have just entered Major League's record books. A Major League Baseball single season record, 242 home runs allowed so far by the pitching staff this year. Now Contreras, who homered to tie the game and knocked Adelman out of the game just 1 inning ago. Last 11 Cub batters have hit 2 doubles, a single, 3 home runs, and scored 5. Fly ball to right, and that'll end the inning. Well, here comes Aroldis Chapman, and they're already standing. in anticipation of the former Red taking the hill, trying to nail it down for the Cubbies. And now Aroldis Chapman, signed, of course, by the Reds after defecting from his homeland of Cuba. And, hey, look, there were guys who were around longer, but no one more dominant in the history of the Reds franchise than Aroldis Chapman.
That's the one thing that we talked about a lot, Tom, is that, you know, how we were going to miss Aroldis Chapman coming into a game, because it's unlike bringing any other reliever into a game I've ever seen. It's almost like a circus sideshow, because you're wondering if tonight's the night he's going to throw 106. See the kind of numbers he's put up as a Reds reliever in his career there. Own a batting average like he was pitching to a lineup of pitchers.
You got to remember, the last 2 years, when you're closing for a team that's finishing well under 500, he wasn't getting a whole lot of work the last couple of years with the Reds. I mean, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'm wrong a lot more than I'm right. But I still think one of the biggest mistakes the Reds have ever made in the history of the franchise was making this guy a relief pitcher.
Well, on the surface, that sounds like a very simple decision, but I think there was a lot more involved in it. And some of that has to do with Chapman's willingness to be a starter and his willingness to put in the kind of work it takes to be a starter rather than a reliever.
Great point.
But I agree with you, and I agree that the same thing should apply to Raisel Iglesias if his arm can withstand the rigors of being a starting pitcher.
And look, make no mistake, the guy who felt perhaps more strongly about it than anybody in the entire Reds organization is a guy who is now the manager of the Reds, and that's Brian Price. He was on record as saying this guy should be a starting pitcher. Now, you've documented it many times about how after Francisco Cordero left, and I'm drawing a blank now on the pitcher the Reds brought in. He's still pitching now, but he never threw. Ryan Madson. Thank you to our producer Josh Hall for that. Ryan Madson never threw a regular season pitch, never threw a spring training pitch for the Reds. He blew out his elbow before the spring training games ever started after the Reds signed him. So the Reds were forced then to a team that they thought was going to be contending for a World Series.
Yeah, and Chapman was ticketed to go back to the minor leagues to work as a starter.
That's right. So there were a lot of moving parts there. There's no question about that. No one's to blame for it. But this is a once in a generation kind of arm.
Well, we say that now. But I'm thinking 5 years from now, you're going to see a half a dozen pitchers hitting 102. We've already got many pitchers hitting 100 miles an hour. And you've got 16-year-olds throwing harder than they ever have before.
Yep.
And they're training to do so like they've never done before. But I think Chapman is unusual because of his delivery and how close he gets to the plate when he releases it. Talked a little bit about Jason Hamill being 6 feet 6 inches tall. Well, you know, Chapman may only be 6'4", but he's all legs. And when he strives towards home plate, he feels like he is right on top of the dish.
Yeah, Brandon's making him work out there a little bit now. This will be the 8th pitch in this at bat.
It's a matter of pride right here.
No doubt. And you wonder how Chapman feels about this right now. First time he's facing his former team. Little dribbler. Chapman will throw a fastball in time to get Phillips. It's a good battle right there, and Chapman wins it for the time being.
Well, he didn't go down on a strikeout. Chapman must be pretty fired up because he did throw a fastball in that at bat to Brandon at 103.
Which I guess he's done on a number of occasions this year. We saw him do it for the first time ever, of course, as a Red. That was out in San Diego, right?
That was 105.
105. What, 105?
It was 105. At least that's what his license plate says.
That's the fastest recorded pitch in the history of professional baseball. Well, he's really revved up tonight.
Yeah.
All right, Chevrolet the batter with 1 out here in the 9th inning. Oh, look out. Chevrolet saying it hit him.
And the home plate umpire wants to see the burn marks.
And Brian Price is saying, well, show him.
Look, my arm is scorched.
It's 101 right there. Well, they're going to take a look at this.
I'm not sure if they're going to be able to see anything. Can you slow it down slow enough?
Now, if you notice when Schebler, follow this all the way through here, if we can. Which arm does he show to the umpire was hit? He's saying the right arm, not the left arm. And I think a minute ago when the umpire came over there, did he show him the right arm or did he show him the other arm? Well, they're going to take a look at it. So hard to tell. And I'm sure they're looking at it the same way back in New York, communicating with the umpires here. Let's see. Did not hit him. That's a crew chief, Dana DeMuth, who's a second base umpire tonight. Paulstein And here's ball 4. So Schebler gets first base after all. So Chapman has an extended at bat against his longtime teammate Brandon Phillips. He never played with Schebler. Schebler came over, of course, in the Peraza deal from the Dodgers. And now another teammate of, actually this is one of the men that he was traded for. Tony Renda was involved in that trade, coming over from the Yankees for Aroldis Chapman.
Well, we know that fact. In fact, we've seen all the players that the Reds did get in return, but I wonder if Aroldis Chapman knows.
You know, it's an interesting question, because I think sometimes you're always interested in, what do they think of me enough to give up to get me? You know what I mean?
If you're a big star like Chapman, though, do you even care?
I mean, I wouldn't care, but I mean, if I'm him, want to take second base, that'll be a stolen base for Schebler. Unfortunately for the Reds, because of the situation down in Florida, the Reds traded him at the very lowest point. I mean, it's like a stock. They decided to sell, if you will, when the stock had pretty much hit rock bottom because of all of the question marks that were out there about Chapman. And would he be suspended? How long would he be suspended? There was all of the talk about, a guy who's not a U.S. citizen yet, and if you're carrying a weapon, or you have a weapon, that can lead to real dramatic steps by the United States federal government at that point. And so there were a lot of things going on that the Reds didn't have the answers to. So instead of, maybe the trade deadline trade we brought up a little while ago, a couple of years ago, when Samardzija was dealt away, a 2-7 record, very good ERA. But the Cubs get Addison Russell for Jeff Samardzija. Reds were trading low, and Vaughn swinging his window. 103 miles per hour again. Delivery coming to Tucker Barnhart. Turns around about right-handed, and it's 1-1. pitch, ninth inning for Chapman. Off the batter, struck out a batter, and now the 3-2 on Barnhart. And that's the old ballgame. So Chapman picks up the save against the only team he ever pitched for prior to 2016. And the Cubs rally from 2-0 down with 3 in the 7th, 2 in the 8th to beat the Reds by a final score of 5-2. We'll be back with more in a moment.